This is the Prana and Poetry Pod, Episode 4, Breaking Yogaland, Part 1. So many vampires to slay, so little time. Welcome to this week's topic, where I'm slaying another vampire or demon. Its name is Yogaland. What am I talking about? The yoga industry. So, fun fact, last year I presented an essay titled Breaking Yogaland, Decolonizing Indigenous and Thermic Cultures. So today I offer part 1 of my blood, sweat and tears of that time of deep inner work and hard external work in the form of research and writing and presentations. And let's begin. There is an ongoing Dharma Yudh, a spiritual and ethical battle for a right consciousness and ethics. And there are two sides, just like in the Mahabharata. This time, the conflict is between the colonial empires and the indigenous peoples. And it is for the right of yoga to be understood from its own viewpoint and context. Yogaland is part of a greater ideology, that of Western neo-colonial supremacy. This enterprise behaves like a parasitic entity with predatory qualities, preying on indigenous cultures to eat, digest and absorb their land, intellectual properties and resources, which have harmful consequences for the original people of the land and their traditions. One consequence is the siphoning of wealth and power away from the native people, shrinking their platforms and space, both physically and virtually, within an ever-expanding billion-dollar industry, and in the process erasing their voice and true cultural wisdom. The Western capitalist market benefits from decontextualizing yoga, meaning taking it out of its context so that it can sell, so that colonial agents and gatekeepers can take ownership of this cultural wealth, this knowledge, and make a profit. The harm here is that we are now consumers of yoga instead of practitioners and seekers, that the practice itself becomes another addiction in a culturally starved system and another gimmick to sustain the marketplace. In the popular essay Decolonization is Not a Metaphor, the authors Tuck and Young explain that decolonization is about repatriation, which, by the way, is not a metonym for the Western social justice movement. It's about land back. That includes the land's intellectual, indigenous technologies and properties. Bharat got its independence in 1947. However, the psychological colonial conditioning remains, even within the diaspora. It is also continued through the educational indoctrination. The traditional Gurukula methodology has been replaced by the British education system, which is consciously designed to eradicate the Hindu way of life and cause alienation and self-hatred by delegitimizing its knowledge systems. Well, what is left of it after arson, terror and violence towards its universities, books and stewards over time? This education system also dismisses its indigenous narratives, traditions and rituals as superstitious and irrational. Hindu culture must, as a result, be erased for the foreign regime to maintain its superiority. The authors of Decolonization is Not a Metaphor also point out that the indigenous people are those with creation stories, not colonization stories. It is about their origin, how they came to be in that specific place, their relationship to the land. And in the context of yoga and its history, it is in relationship to the land of Bharat, within its Hindu epistemology and cosmology, within the Vedic vision of life, whose very essence is Dharma. Nowhere is this more evident than in the grand epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, which form Bharat's history, and which teach the importance of Dharma as the cosmic morality that sustains all beings and their relationships to one another. Dharma is that which underpins existence, upholding the cycles and rhythms of nature, including the planets and the stars, the entire universe. Dharma is the pervading fabric of reality for the Hindus and other indigenous sects. An important point to understand is that Western thought and systems are being implanted onto an indigenous people that have their own way of thinking and existing. The dichotomy of religion and secularism cannot be superimposed upon a dharmic way of life where spirituality and science come as a whole. There is a diversity within the unity of dharma. They are not competing discourses like they are in the West. The understanding of Vedic texts and the Yoga Shastras are then grossly misinterpreted to suit the colonial agenda and their biased lens. For example, there are many Sanskrit non-translatable words like Shraddha. Dharma itself is not truly translatable. Words are not definitions here, they are concepts, which like Shraddha and the phonetics of Sanskrit itself are to be known and lived as embodied experiences. For dharmic people, Sanskrit words don't exist to be defined, they are conceptualizations to be felt. Dharma cannot be boxed in as simply a religion, in the sense of the Western definition, which is to do with man-made beliefs and rules, and therefore Hinduism, though contains features of a religion, is more than that. Sadly, the true understanding or meaning cannot be captured within the limits of the English language. In the neo-colonial yoga industry, sanatanadharma is given the status of a religion for the more sinister agenda of delegitimizing its scientific contributions. And therefore the West can continue to maintain its civilizational supremacy. Religion is used as an excuse to distance their yoga practice from its Hindu framework. This is because the patriarchal Abrahamic religions from their onset have been practices of violence, ethnocide and genocide, of repression and oppression, which have caused generations of trauma. And in Yogaland, this deep fear of religion as a dogmatic hegemony is the West's own psyche projected onto the dharmic way of life. The word guru, furthermore, invokes terror of a patriarchal, misogynistic authority who takes away the agency of the student. It is clear to see the religious secular colonial tropes played out here. In the indigenous view, there is no hierarchy between guru and shishya. There is only relationship of mutual respect, and the guru itself is a tattva, a principal essence or force which can take any form: a blade of grass, a clay pot, a dance, an element of nature, etc. It is a concept that carries a depth of meaning which again can only be experienced through deep relationship and inquiry into life, a true yoga practice. As mentioned, the colonial or imperialistic mindset seeks to define words, whereas in the dharmic way, the concept is to be understood and embodied like its phonetic language, Sanskrit. The Westerner again superimposes non-indigenous definitions of the guru onto a real human being, mistaking the guru tattva for the guru herself or himself. No person is master in the dharmic modalities. Everyone has their unique role to play. This is called Varna Ashrama Dharma, and life itself is the teacher. This is a very heavy topic for those of us from the original culture who are doing the hard work of deconditioning and unlearning. I have said this before, this has been and is a grief journey, and there is a layer of anger, sometimes rage, coating this deep grief of our erasure and silencing. My name is Payal. I am a coach and teacher for sensitive, artistic women who are vision-driven, those whose purpose is in part to create a safe and loving world. Subscribe to join me on this journey of uncolonizing body, mind, heart, and spirit. And I'll speak to you next week for part 2 of Breaking Yogaland. Rise up, warrior.